Okay, folks, welcome to my second video on Rippaverse's The Great War of Separation. I'm Mike Partika, and today we're going to be covering bad packaging. That's right, we're talking about the outer materials of The Great War of Separation #1, which should be selling the book, or at least complementing it, but really aren't. Let's start with The Great War of Separation #1's 4 covers, which are 1 part perfection and 3 parts what the hell were you thinking? Cover A was drawn by longtime Rippaverse cover artist Kanan White, and it doesn't get much better than this. It's got a political theme, it's got a war theme, it's got heroes on the cover, it's got pretty much all the important characters on the cover, including a couple of characters that'll play a prominent role in later issues. I have nothing but love for this cover. In fact, it's the cover that I chose for my reading copy of the book. That's the copy I don't destroy to get scans. These other covers, though. First, there's cover B, which is a retro-style cover by Salvage PI artist and longtime comic book art-heavy Bart Sears. There's nothing technically wrong with this cover. The problem is that it reveals the character Zeno, and Zeno's appearance in this book is one of the very few surprises we get. There's not a lot of mystery or surprise in the plot to this book, so when the author gives you so few surprises, it behooves the publisher to not let the book wear those surprises on its sleeve. That just robs the book of its ability to surprise the reader. In contrast, there are no surprises at all with cover C by Alpha Core, Horseman, Zalen, and Immortal Hulk artist Joe Bennett, unless you count my surprise that Joe Bennett drew something this boring. This art just shows Brian Solari flying, and it seems to mock the fact that he doesn't have a Superman-like chest insignia. You can almost hear the Superman theme trail off in disappointment. Dun, da, 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 wah, wah. And somehow this is the cover they picked to make the foil embossed one that's an extra price. I think it's like $38. Now, cover D by Wagner Rice, it's pretty good. It looks better from a distance, where you can imagine that orange glow is actually fire. When I first saw this, I thought this was like an 1860s version of Ghost Rider. But look at the outfits the people are wearing. It looks like they're actors celebrating at a Civil War reenactment after party. What was the theme of this cover? The South shall rise again? All you're missing is the Klan robes. You have to expect the title to be the Great War of Antebellum. Now, since the Great War of Separation #2's covers are out, I'm going to go ahead and address these as well. But honestly, my thoughts on these covers are pretty much the same that I had for the #1 covers. Kanan White draws the mass market cover D this time, and he nails it again. It's kind of a retread of what he already drew for issue #1. I almost wonder if this is like an alternate drawing that he made for issue #1. But in any case, it works, and when you got something that works, just use it. This cover, on the other hand, I cannot say works. This is cover A by Eduardo Mello, and it practically screams that Rippaverse is running out of money. I honestly think this is a manga style or something. There's no background art except for an explosion, not to mention the fact that we are featuring front and center these characters who we haven't even been introduced to yet. You would think there'd be at least a little bit of continuity of context with the previous book, but nope, here's these 2 new characters just out of the blue. Cover B is predictably retro style. This one's by Jack Jadson, and like cover A, it's featuring characters we don't know, but at least the retro style text on the cover provides us some context. These are apparently the evil Excepts that Texas will be fighting. Of course, here we're running into the same problem that ISOM #2 had, where the character names that are being introduced aren't tied to the characters on the cover. The names are kind of descriptive enough that we can associate who's who, but honestly, I don't know why they even bother including this introducing line. We don't have to know these characters' names right away. Why don't you save a little bit of mystery for the book? Oh, and I love how it says, the war is over for someone, but who? Gee, you've only introduced one expendable character that we would even care about. I wonder if it's that one. Methinks you're telegraphing a little too much. Finally, there's cover C by Joe Prado, which is holofoil embossed. I don't even know what that means. And somehow he's made this cover even more boring than Joe Bennett's cover C, because this one has no background. It's just a big old explosion. And now I'm just struggling to figure out how Rippaverse chooses its high-dollar covers. I mean, why wouldn't you take what are obviously the best covers and make these the high-dollar ones? I don't like paying a premium for my comics, but I would pay a premium for these if it meant I didn't have to get the other ones. And let's face it, Rippaverse cannot afford to leave money on the table at this point. Not when the Great War of Separation #2 hasn't even broken 100,000 yet, and it's only sold a little over a third of what #1 sold. Y'all need all the money you can get. Okay, moving on from the covers, let's take a look at the title page of the book, which contains the creator credits. I'm noticing a stark hierarchy here. Look at the size of Chuck Dixon's name compared to Jack Herbert's name compared to Candace Hahn's name, and then look at where they put Invisible Art Studio. They threw them in the cheap seats. Can we all please agree that when you are creating a full color comic, all four of these roles are essential and they deserve equal billing? I mean, the only time you don't need a colorist is if you're doing a black and white book, and the only time you don't need a letterer is if you're doing one of those rare silent issues like G.I. Joe number 21 or Marvel's entire line during Nuff Said month. This really burns me. I mean, I really don't like seeing this hierarchy, and I wish somebody would inform Eric July that this practice needs to stop, especially as regards the letterer. Invisible Art Studio is just getting shafted here. Now, underneath the creator credits is the opening blurb. That's like a paragraph which usually serves to introduce a series or a character, and maybe it catches us up on what's been happening of late. So theoretically, this opening blurb for The Great War of Separation #1 should enable the reader to hit the ground running. How does it do? Well, let's give it a quick read through. The United States of America is not so united anymore. Decades ago, the unthinkable happened. Civil war that would later become known as the Great War of Separation tore this great nation apart. This limited series goes to the battlefield as we see Texas take up arms against the cartel, the United States, and the world as they fight to forge their own sovereignty. Heroes will emerge in the army and even in suburban neighborhoods. Texans are in for the fight of their lives as accepts forever change the face of modern warfare. Okay, it's not bad, but can it be improved? Oh yeah, it can be improved. First, we'll take this comma and scrap it. We don't need it. This A here, even though it follows a colon, it starts a complete sentence, so I would go ahead and capitalize it. These words are pointless. Get rid of them. The only thing I have against the title here is that it's not emphasized, so let's give it emphasis. This limited series goes to... I don't really like reminding the reader that this is a comic book. That kind of breaks immersion. Let's change it to join us on the battlefield. As we see Texas take up... Yeah, that's too wordy. As Texas takes up, now we get into a list of 3 enemies that Texas has to face, and the first of them is called the cartel. You want to name that cartel? I mean, not that the name would mean anything to the reader anyway, but we really need to at least describe what kind of cartel it is, so let's call it a violent drug cartel. The United States? Texas is part of the United States when the story starts, so this is not clear either. What you really mean is the federal government. That's government at the national level. I mean, Congress, the presidents, the U.S. Army. I mean, that's the federal government. But at this point, Texas is still part of the United States, per se. As for the world, I'm almost certain the entire world is not going to be against Texas. Maybe 1 or 2 or 3 big countries. So let's just say world powers. As they fight to forge, we don't even need as they fight. Their own sovereignty? I mean, we're talking about Texas. Texas is a singular entity. Use its own sovereignty. And what kind of sovereignty, by the way? Because Texas already has state sovereignty. What it's looking for is national sovereignty. Heroes will emerge in the army and even in suburban neighborhoods. Well, that's nice. That makes it sound like you don't expect heroes to come from suburban neighborhoods. I mean, I know what you're trying to say. You're trying to say that heroes are going to come from everywhere in Texas, but let's say that without being insulting to the suburbs. From the ranks of its military to its humblest suburban neighborhoods, heroes will emerge. Texans are in for the fight of their lives as accepts forever change the face of modern warfare. Okay, Texans are in for the fight of their lives makes for a good last sentence, but this part about accepts, that belongs in the rest of the description that we've been getting so far. So let's just switch the order of the clauses, and we'll attach the first clause to the end of the previous sentence, and we're good to go. Now this should get the reader off to a good start. The United States of America is not so united anymore. Decades ago, the unthinkable happened. A civil war known as the Great War of Separation tore this great nation apart. Join us on the battlefield as Texas takes up arms against a violent drug cartel, the federal government, and world powers to forge its own national sovereignty. From the ranks of its military to its humblest suburban neighborhoods, heroes will emerge, and accepts will forever change the face of modern warfare. Texans are in for the fight of their lives. Okay, now we come to the back cover text, and the back cover text is some of the most important text on your book. This is the text that is going to sell your book. I don't know how many of you read paperbacks, but I used to go to the store and I would go through paperback after paperback after paperback looking at the back covers to get an idea of what the book was about. And more often than not, my decision about whether or not to buy that book was based on the back cover. So if you ever plan on having your comic book sit on a retailer's shelf or even in a half-price bookstore somewhere, you're going to be relying on this text to sell your book. So the question is, how well does this back cover text for The Great War of Separation #1 sell the book? Let's find out. First, let's take the text and we'll run it through the error checker. Oh my God. Okay, don't panic. It's important not to panic. Keep breathing. Listen to the sound of my voice. Now, if you're in the higher echelons of Rippaverse and you know who wrote this complete freaking disaster, here's what I want you to do. Find the nearest firing button and slap that mofo like it's a Russian slap fight contestant. Because under no circumstances are you to allow the writer of this crap to ever approach the back cover of a Rippaverse book ever again. Whoever that smooth brain is who did this, put that person on, I don't know, guard the warehouse from Riley's sticky dollars duty, or assign them to something else your one-eyed cousin from Appalachia could do. Just don't let that person near a keyboard ever again. Buy a taser if you have to. This is an inexcusable mess that I've got to go through and fix now. Thank you very damn much. One thing I am absolutely not fixing, though, is this number 5. I already did a whole video on how that number is actually 6 or more, so just forget about this. I'm not getting into this argument again. How did Brian Solari become an infamous war hero? Infamous war hero is not really a thing. The reason you become infamous is because a lot of people believe you did something really, really wrong. For example, you could become infamous for, say, I don't know, popping an unsecure flash drive into your floating base's computer network so that it falls from the sky and nearly kills thousands of people. You could definitely be infamous for that. But you can't be an infamous war hero. You can just be a famous war hero. What is the secret of the Silman family? Well, I read the book, and from what I read, there isn't one. So let's not pretend or even foreshadow that there is. Instead, let's ask a reasonable question like, what impact did the war have on Avery Silman's family? That's a question we know has an answer. I mean, even if the answer is nothing, it has an answer. This story is not for the faint of heart, but an important moment in history for all. Okay, I don't like the fact that this sentence uses what's basically a descriptive adjective type phrase in parallel with a noun identity type phrase. Not for the faint of heart, the Great War of Separation chronicles a pivotal flashpoint in Rippaverse history. Before continuing with the rest of the text, I think we should look at this passage and look at how we can format this to make it stand out more. We basically got 3 questions followed by what I would call a promise of entertainment. Boom, let's do this. Now we've got 3 bullet points for the questions, which makes the reader aware that these are really important questions. And then we've got the promise of entertainment as a bridge to the next section. I'm also going to throw in a little tidbit here about how did Brian Solari gain his powers and become a famous war hero, because this is the origin of Brian Solari we're basically telling here. Character origins are a big selling point. Why not put that information in the back cover text? Okay, getting back to the text below. When tensions rise at the border. Oh, look, border. B-O-A-R-D-E-R. I haven't seen that mistake since literally the last book I reviewed. When tensions rise at the border between Texas and the cartel, a bloody battle ensues claiming many lives. Okay, technically that's the border between Texas and Mexico, but then again, who cares? Because wherever the conflict starts, it's not going to stay there. Instead, let's go with a bloody battle between the Texas military and a vicious Mexican drug cartel claims many lives. This whole sentence about excepts is coming way too soon. I'm just going to kick this to the end. Maybe we'll get back to it later. Texas Governor Plessy Sanders does not submit to the violence, standing tall, causing tensions between his state and the President of the United States. Looks like mighty Texas is on its own to end this warfare once and for all. Oh my God, that's so cringe. Standing tall, mighty Texas. I'm a Texan, and I find that kind of language embarrassing. Do this instead. When the U.S. government refuses to act, Texas Governor Plessy Sanders resolves that the Lone Star State will go it alone. Jacob Silman is called in for duty, his family being forced to relocate to Florespark, Texas, where his Army hero Brian Solari defects to Texas to serve his great state in a battle of the ages. Oh God, there's so many things wrong with this. First of all, it's giving away way too much of the story. Mentioning these 2 characters is fine, but you only want to familiarize the reader with the conflict that's going to occur. You don't want to tell the reader how the conflict is resolved, or what the consequences of the conflict are. Moreover, here we have the mistake of calling Brian Solari a hero before he's earned it. Ever since Gooding the Polymath, I've been trying to beat into my viewers' heads the fact that the one thing you don't tell your audience is how the audience is supposed to feel about your character. Don't just outright say, this character's a hero, without giving your reader something to connect to that backs that up. If you can point the reader to prior stories, great. If you can show the reader how your character behaves, great. Don't just give the character a label and expect your reader to take it for granted. And we don't have any information about Brian Solari to make that kind of judgment. When he first appears in the book, he's a 2-star general, but who knows how he rose to the top? Did he get there by bravery, or did he get there by backstabbing? We don't know anything about the guy, so we're not really ready to be told he's a hero at this point. There's nothing that backs that up yet. Thankfully, I don't see this hero mistake coming up much. I mean, I haven't had to mention it since literally the last book I reviewed. Also, this expression is not Battle of the Ages, it's Battle for the Ages. Battle of the Ages is a goofy ass game show where teenagers play alongside their grandparents and try to beat both the clock and Grandma Margie's cologne. In short, this whole passage is one big fixer-upper. Let's go with this instead. Family man and Texas Guardsman Jacob Silman is called up for duty, and General Brian Solari of the U.S. Army must decide where his loyalty lies after receiving orders pitting him against his home state. Notice how now we're not telling the reader any consequences, and we're not telling the reader any resolutions. We're just giving the reader the conflicts, and now the reader's got to open the book to find out what happens. What happens here will change everything. Oh God, that's just such a throwaway comment. It's like saying, please clap. Now, I'm not going to get rid of the comment entirely, but I'm going to kick it to the end like I did with the comment about the excepts because maybe I'll be able to fit it in later, but it doesn't belong here. Before Brian Solari was the leader of Alpha Corps, before he had the ability to fly, he made a choice to fight for his people and his life would never be the same again. Okay, first off, what the hell is an ampersand doing there? You don't need an ampersand. You have plenty of room. Just use the word and. You don't just throw a symbol in there for no reason. Come on. Actually, it doesn't matter anyway, because I'm just going to get rid of this entire sentence. Boop! We just didn't need it. Friggin' ampersand. Unbelievable. Okay, now we're back to the first of the two sentences that I kicked down the road. With the existence of excepts, the fight is escalated to its highest means, causing both sides to get creative with how to ensure victory. Okay, somebody was trying way too hard with this sentence. Let's go with this instead. Meanwhile, the conflict seems destined to escalate as all the parties involved determine to utilize the exceptional beings in their midst. I kind of prefer this construction because it doesn't feel like it takes excepts for granted, even though the book does. What happens here will change everything. Yeah, now that everything else is pretty much fixed, it occurs to me that this line can actually fit, but where it really belongs is up here at the end of the second block. Just put some emphasis on the last word and add a little excitement with an exclamation point, and we're set. Of course, that new exclamation point at the end means we can tone down the punctuation on the previous sentence. We'll just change that to a period because, 2 exclamation points in a row? Slow down, Speed Racer. Last but definitely not least, that middle block there makes an even better ending. Let's switch these 2 blocks of text around. There we go. So now we have our masterpiece. How did the United States of America separate into 5 distinct regions? How did Brian Solari gain his powers and become a famous war hero? What impact did the war have on Avery Silman's family? A bloody battle between the Texas military and a vicious Mexican drug cartel claims many lives. When the U.S. government refuses to act, Texas Governor Plessy Sanders resolves that the Lone Star State will go it alone. Family man and Texas Guardsman Jacob Silman is called up for duty, and General Brian Solari of the U.S. Army must decide where his loyalty lies after receiving orders pitting him against his home state. Meanwhile, the conflict seems destined to escalate as all the parties involved determine to utilize the exceptional beings in their midst. Not for the faint of heart, the Great War of Separation chronicles a pivotal flashpoint in Rippaverse history. What happens here will change everything. This really works. This sells the book. Now, if only this were the text that was actually on the back cover of the book. This, sadly, is what readers are actually going to see when they pick up the book. Just think about it for a second. I mean, imagine you were one of these 4 creators who poured your heart and soul into creating this book. And you knew that 3/4 of your readers are going to be exposed to covers that are either spoilery, bland, or just plain WTF. And then if they get past the cover, they have to go to the back cover text and read this wall of crap. Then if they make it past the back cover, they come to the opening blurb and they find text almost as bad. And then after all that, they're confronted with this remedial geography map that can't even accurately tell them how many countries there are on the continent. It doesn't even mention Olympus Dicus. The readers had to go through all of that crap just to finally get to the story, to this beautiful story that can only be half understood because half of it is in foreign languages. But that's a complaint for another day because I am already worn out just dealing with the Great War of Separation #1's bad packaging. Thank you for watching. I'm Mike Partika. Please like this video if you found it helpful, and also subscribe so that you'll be notified of my future reviews. I've got one more video on the Great War of Separation #1 planned, and after that, I'm hoping to indulge in 1 or 2 non-Rippaverse titles before reviewing Yaira #2. Again, I'm Mike Partika. Thank you so much for watching, and I will talk to you later.